Okay, welcome back to my channel. I can't do this with you sitting here. I feel like an idiot. In today's video, we're going to talk about the home building process. So my husband and I have been building a house for how many months?
4 months.
We're only 4 months in.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot longer. So for 4 months, we've been building a house. We are just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And I wanted to go ahead and post this for anybody who is looking to build a custom home or just interested in the process. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't really think about unless you are kind of in the process, and by the time you think about them, it's probably too late. So we just wanted to share a few tips and tricks that we have picked up along the way, and also show you guys the current status of our house. It is December 6th, and we are slated to move into our house at the end of February, beginning of March 2025. We're getting to all of the fun stuff right now. So we'll go ahead and get into today's video. Lighting might be kind of crazy, but we are driving to our new house. We are currently building a new house we're on the outskirts of Nashville, like 30 minutes outside of Nashville. And we've been hunting for land forever. We were looking for what, 2 years or more?
I was looking for more than 2 years.
Yeah, so we're in a county that basically, like, the school system is okay. It's not ideal. And we have a 10-month-old daughter. So when we first started looking, we didn't have a baby yet. And that was like at the forefront of my mind, was I didn't want to settle down somewhere where the school district sucked, and then feel like, you know, we had to move shortly thereafter. I really wanted to like find our forever home land. And we went looking on a plot of land that we loved, and there were like 5 tracts. Long story short, we got outbid. I was on a work trip in DC, and my husband, Bradley,
I went alone
and was on the phone with me and let me know that we got outbid. It was like so beautiful, but we were like crushed after that. I was like, no, like that was the one. The minute we pulled into this lot, I was like, this is it. But yeah, so we got the land, started building in July. I think we broke ground June?
Very
End of July 2024. And fast forward now, it is currently December 6th? No day it is. It's Friday, December 6th. And we are just gonna go ahead and start doing house update videos. If you're curious about any of the previous progress, I was posting over on TikTok about that. So I have some older videos that you can go look at. So I was doing kind of every couple weeks an update, so you can see from when there was, you know, nothing done to when we had the footers dug, to framing, floor plate, all of that. It's just like, it's cool to see the process. So we're gonna go over to the house today and check in on the progress. So this is actually the wood that is going to box in our beams inside. So that's pretty cool. It's so cool. So that's the wood that's gonna box those in. We talked about picking the house plan, finding the land, and our builder. Now I kind of wanted to just talk about the process a little bit, because I feel like going into this, I obviously have never built a house before. So I had no idea what to expect. And I think part of me thought it was a little bit more like structured. but there's no like checklist. Would you agree? Like you kind of just go into it and you pick the plan, and then from the plan you kind of have an idea of what you would want in terms of like what you want the color scheme to look like, but nobody's handing you like a book of paint swatches and saying like, here, pick one of these.
If you want that, go with a spec house.
Yes. Some builders have what, like 3 or 4 plans or something?
Yeah, a handful of plans and then a handful of finishes within each one.
So in that case, if you have like decision fatigue, that would be a really good option. I just kind of was not expecting. I think I was shocked by how many decisions we had to make and how quickly we had to make them. A lot of the decision making happens up front. So like right when you meet with your builder for the first time, you're talking through your plans and all of that, and they're gonna start asking questions like, what kind of material do you want on the exterior? Have you looked at windows and doors? Those are things that they typically will start getting pretty quickly. So we pretty much had a solid idea. We're both in construction. We both had an idea of the look that we wanted and brands that we were probably gonna go with. That made that process a little bit easier, but even getting down to like plumbing and electrical fixtures, lighting fixtures, just so many decisions. That was a surprise to me, was just how quickly you have to make decisions and how many choices there are. The other big thing that was a shock to me was the budget. So that sounds intuitive, but when you have a budget and you're working towards it, it's really easy to front load your budget and not have money towards the end to make the little decisions. So that's another reason why making all those decisions early on in the process is so important. My husband is a genius and literally made spreadsheets, like formulated spreadsheets of all of our materials, our fixtures, square footage of tile. Like the tile budget for me was so hard. If you go into somewhere like Burn Decor, you walk down this like warehouse size building of, you know, tile samples, and think of, you know, a tile, it's just a wall of them. And most of them were well out of our budget. And we're not even using that much tile. It's like our master bathroom floor and shower, our guest bathroom floor and shower, and our powder room floor. Like that was it for tile. So I'm thinking like we can get fancy with it. I had all these ideas, and when I got down to like, here's the budget and here's your options, I was like, wow, okay. And I was able to pick something that I loved and I'm so happy with it, but you had to really pay attention because it would have been so easy for me to spend what, 5-6 times our tile budget. Make the spreadsheets and really like get nitty gritty with the details early on. That is our biggest piece of advice. The other thing that I think was just a shock to me was how expensive the labor for certain things is. So you might be looking at the materials and think like, oh, we can afford this. But if you're not getting the quotes like from your builder with labor included, don't assume that just because you can afford the material that you can afford to have it done. So, for example, our plan, the renderings had herringbone hardwood floors throughout the whole house. And it was like one of the reasons I fell in love with this house. It was 2 things. It was like this big window in the kitchen and the herringbone hardwood floors. And I was like, oh my gosh, gotta have it. The labor for herringbone hardwood floors is like a mortgage.
Just the added labor for the herringbone was more than the labor and material just to have like straight
Yeah.
floors.
So it's really expensive. That was a heartbreak for me, and I fought for months to try to work it into the budget. And that was another example of where early on, if we would have been like, yes, go with the herringbone hardwood floors, we would be sitting here at this point like, what do we do for appliances? What do we do for light fixtures? Like we wouldn't have a budget left. So it would be really easy to blow it on those types of things. Other biggest piece of advice that I have is like, ask your builder questions. Ask if they have any ideas, because there were a lot of things where our builder would suggest something that we hadn't thought of, and it was things we ended up going with. So for example, there was this little room off of the kitchen. Somebody shooting guns were out there in the sticks. So he suggested there was this room for like the water heater.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all that was in there. And it was what, 200 square foot room?
It's a big room.
It's pretty, it's like a decent sized room.
The size of our...
He's like, you guys could put the water heater in the garage if you wanted to and save this room for something else. And I was like, wait, really? We can just do that? And he's like, yeah. And so we gained a whole little room, which I think we're gonna end up using as like a true mud room. Another just little example of having a builder that you trust, that you're comfortable asking questions and working with, makes the process so much better.
The more stuff that you can come to the table with to make a good budget up front is important, because the more information you give your builder, the better the initial budget will be. And you have to go to the bank with that budget to get the loan to start the build. So if you don't have a good budget to begin with, the whole thing's gonna be a hard process on everybody.
Yes, and what he means by a good budget is having selections. So
Don't
not
just assume that it shows in the rendering, the plan, that you're getting that.
Oh my gosh, that's another huge misconception that I should address. So when you buy your plans, we bought our plans from Architectural Designs, which we've had a wonderful experience with them. Love it, love our plan. They have beautiful houses. But I assumed that everything that's shown in the rendering of that house would be what was included in our budget. So our house rendering had cabinetry and countertops on either side of the fireplace in the living room. But when a builder does takeoffs, they're not really looking for cabinetry and countertops in the living room. It's the kitchen and the bathrooms, maybe the laundry room. And I was like, well, then what are we gonna do over there if we're not, if that's not in the budget, and we certainly can't just like squeeze that back in, what is that gonna be? So don't assume that anything in the rendering, including materials, countertops, cabinets, anything like that, if it's not a wall, like, you're not getting it unless you ask for it. It's another thing to think about.
The other thing I can think of is, most people that are building a house is more than one person, right? You're in a relationship. I think make a list of
non-negotiables.
Each other's non-negotiables, and then another list of like wants. Just wants, if you have the money, or if, the time or whatnot.
That's a really good point.
Look over that before you have your meeting with your builder.
Yeah, like doors, make sure you really are looking at the measurements on your plans and see what's in the plans, because if your plans are calling for like massive windows and doors and you don't select windows and doors that are actually that size, it's not gonna look the same when you look at the front of your house, if that makes sense. Like, even our windows look small on the front of the house, and they're huge.
They do. I was making that comment to someone at work the other day.
Yeah, so really pay attention to windows and doors, because that like can make or break the house.